Let me play this for you, Bob, because you brought up Draymond Green. Here's what Draymond Green said about you last Wednesday after the game.
I couldn't have asked for a special person to spend my first 11 years with, because if it wasn't for him, I'm not sure where I'd be, where my career would have gone. You know, the things that I've learned from him about being a father, being a husband, being a great person. Like, I'm not sure I'm sitting here talking to you today without that man.
When you hear that, Bob, what pops into your brain?
A lot. Gratitude that I could affect somebody that way. You know, I don't take that for granted that he listened or that he feels like I helped him or help him. So I'm grateful for that. You know, Draymond it's crazy. The thing that people never got to, or maybe you guys know, but many don't, is as far as how much Draymond cared about the team. Because when you're the GM, which I obviously was, I know who's calling me, asking me who we're going to draft or who we're going to sign or what's going on with this or calling me on the ride home after a loss. You factor all that in to 12 years, however many years we had together. He cared about the team so much. And I think many people might see the way he acted in certain situations, and he would agree that he didn't act well in certain situations. But he always cared and still does about the team and winning. And that's my favorite part of him, is that even though some people have an idea of he's hurting the team, or that he never would intentionally hurt a team he was on. He would never do that. He's just not who he is. One, he wants to win so much. And two, he does, because not everybody did that. And not everybody does that. They just want their money, they want their playing time, and they want whatever else they want. But he would call and say, what are we doing with our two-way contracts? So, you know, I mean, I think when you are a professional athlete at his level, people think they know who you are, and you know they do have a sense. I'm not saying people are wrong about what Draymond is, but there's another side that I got to know that is a selfless guy that really wants what's best for his teammates and his team, and he did lead in those ways. So again, Draymond and I are going to talk forever. And I'm sure we'll have dust-ups in the future, too. That's what friends do. I'm sure you guys have had them. If you don't have a real relationship, if you don't have disagreements with your wife, with your friends, with your family, otherwise, you know, that happens, right, when you're close to somebody. So that has happened with Draymond and me, too. Yeah, it wasn't all perfect, but you work through it. And to hear him say those things is really nice. And I appreciate those things that he said. And I feel like he's helped me a lot understand what it's like to grow up the way he grew up and what he faces and the challenges a professional athlete coming from where he came from faces. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely. All right, Bob, I got to do this. We have to. Like, whenever I see like the Bill Walsh memoirs, you get all these details of like, he almost traded for John Elway, you know, and Tom Landry sitting here saying like, well, if they don't make the catch, you know, we go to back-to-back Super Bowls. And there's always these seminal moments like Pandora's box, the butterfly effect. Was there ever a moment that you think of as a woulda, coulda, shoulda, moving off Mark Jackson, signing Steve Kerr, breaking up the big three, a draft pick here and there? Like, what do you think about? Like, thank God we did this or didn't do that. There's got to be one, right? There's got to be one that sticks out.
The Kevin Love trade, right?
Yeah, like something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you work as a GM for however many years, over 10 or a decade, you're going to have a ton of those. Thank goodness that didn't happen, or thank goodness that did happen. If I have to answer your question, you know what? I mean, obviously, there's so many that I could go through and say that if this didn't happen, we never are anything. There's a few. I mean, the ones that clearly I was an assistant GM at the time, but drafting Clay was if the Sacramento Kings don't trade the 10th pick. Or Milwaukee, I guess, traded the 10th pick to Sacramento to take Fredette. I think Milwaukee was taking Clay at 10. So there's that, right? So he's gone. So there's no Klay Thompson. That's how close that was. So if they don't make a trade, which is semi-unlikely in the draft, so there's Clay. no Klay Thompson because he ends up being a Milwaukee Buck because he's picked one pick ahead. Okay, so that's one. Draymond, we thought we had him about 20 something on our board, and we thought he'd be gone when we picked at 30, and we thought Festus Ezeli was a big position of need. And I wish I could just, I shouldn't highlight this, but who cares? We took Festus before Draymond. I know you work with Festus.
Right.
I love Festus. It tells you we're not all perfect, right?
Right.
But we realized when Draymond was slipping, we were in the room going, oh my gosh, can we get Draymond Green? And so we were lucky that we got him. But if anybody takes Draymond Green, right, anybody, then there's none of this happens. So those are two. I'll give you another one. When Iguodala was a free agent, we had gone to a recruiting meeting with Dwight Howard and realized quickly Dwight Howard, that was not going to happen. I think he went to Houston that year. Mm-hmm. You could tell in the meeting, like, yeah, it was nice of him to meet. And this was when Dwight was kind of at the height of his powers. And so, of course, we're going to meet. And felt like that was going the other way. Leaving that meeting, I got a call from Iguodala's agent, who I used to work with. And his name is Rob Palenque. He's the Lakers GM now. And he said, hey, what about Iguodala? And I told Rob, I said, we don't have any cap space to do that. So I don't know how it would work. And we had an idea of how we would get Dwight, but we hadn't put a ton of time into Iguodala because we thought Iguodala was, one, going to go back to Denver, or two, there was 4 or 5 other teams that had room. So he said, what about we meet? And so we went to meet with Iguodala. It was myself, Joe, and I think maybe Travis, Schlink, and Kirk. I forget. But there's 3 or 4 of us. So I remember I can go to the office where we met. We went up there. Andre was sitting there at the table of the conference room, and we were starting our presentation, and we were about 5 minutes into it. And Andre, as you both know well by covering the team,
right,
he just says, yo, stop. I want to come to the Warriors. So if you guys can figure it out, I'm coming. And so he said that because we had just played Denver, and he saw, because Andre's very smart, he saw what Steph and Klay were going to be maybe before anybody, and realized, I want to be with those guys. And by the way, he's a brilliant basketball mind. So he also saw what he did. He needed them, and they needed him. And he saw that 1 + 1 + 1 would equal 7 with those 3 guys, which it did. So he gave us the time, as did Rob, to figure out how to trade Biedrins and Jefferson to the Jazz, which took days of Andre turning down other offers. I told Rob 3 or 4 times, Rob, I'm trying, but don't lose Sacramento. Don't lose Dallas, because he had those 2 teams. And I said, I don't want Andre to be stuck with nothing. And so he said, don't worry, hang in there. I'll hang with you if you think you can do it. So, fast forward, we get that trade with Utah, we get Iguodala. If we don't get Andre, another thing, none of it happens, because Andre was he was the transcendent free agent. He was the guy I'm choosing to go to the Warriors. Mm-hmm. Now we drafted Klay, Draymond. Steph was, oh my gosh, what a gift to walk into having Curry on the team. You can't ever repay that debt. But Andre, being a guy that raised his hand and said, I got options and I'm going there. The Warriors were not anything much then but a team that had went to the second round. It wasn't like I'm going to the Warriors to win a championship. And so for Andre to see that and say that, I think it legitimized the Warriors a little bit in the eyes of the league, because Andre's a respected guy, and he had been on the Olympics. I think he had played. He was a top player. So anyway, I could do this for 10 hours. Wow. You want to go through the whole
Bob, the 30 for 30. Thing? Don't save it for the 30 for 30. Save it for the morning roast one day. We'll do a whole week of it.
but guys, I mean, there's 50 things.
Right.
And here's the best part is, we talked earlier about relationships. Mm-hmm. Let's say when I worked with Rob, we didn't like each other, or he was a jerk, or I was a liar, or he did something wrong. We never get Iguodala. So when you guys move through your career and you interact with people, I promise you, it all comes back around. All of it. All of the relationships, all the people you have on, all how you treat people. That's one thing I learned more than anything in my time with the Warriors.
Wow.
Getting Otto Porter at a minimum
Right.
If we don't have Otto Porter in 22,
Huge
awesome.
that
maybe.
year.
And you know what? I've known David Falk for 20. And by the way, none of this is like me. This is my story of you guys asked about how we got. David Falk was Michael Jordan's agent. He was I used to work with David Falk. So my point is that just like you guys, you stay in media long enough, you treat people well. Sometimes it comes back around, right?
No doubt.
And it's all about winning and putting it into the Warriors. So, anyways, there's a ton.
I thought you were going to say
a lot of mistakes, guys. A lot of mistakes along the way too.
Yeah. See, I thought you were going to say basically giving a vote of confidence for Bonte on pre and post. That's what I thought the biggest mistake might have been. You know,
You've created a monster.
I mean,
Bob.
the Warriors'
You created
ascension in
a
the last
monster,
10 years
Bob.
is incredible.
Hey.
But Bonte Hill going from Lincoln, Washington Turkey Bowl games as the Examiner writer to the pre and post game host of the
Why'd you do
Warriors
this,
and the
Shasky?
4-time
I knew this was
champions.
coming.
There is no other rise like that.
I knew this was coming.
No. But Joe, how powerful is it for Bonte to go back to high school or college and say that story to kids?
Yeah.
That's more. That story is better than my story. Where you came from and this city, and to do what you've done, both you guys, to go back to speak to these kids and say, I was one of
100%.
Not only was I one of you, I was probably in worse shape than you guys in this classroom.
No, it's funny.
You know?
I have to speak to SF State on Friday. I'm talking to the
Chomp, chomp.
play class, Mike Mitchell. I always go back there.
The
That's a
Gators.
great story.